Welcome back, my loves. My next guest tonight is CNN's chief investigative correspondent and an anchor of CNN Newsroom. Please welcome to The Late Show, Pamela Brown. Hello.
All right, I didn't trip, so that's good.
Oh, good job. Good
Start
job.
here.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
I've
meet
been
you.
watching you for years, since you started in
2013.
2013.
Yep.
Over
Worked
at
my way up.
CNN. Next week, and this is a big deal. You are joining Wolf Blitzer as co-anchor of The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer
Like, pinch me moment.
and Pamela Brown. Well, are they having to expand the size of The Situation Room because to pack another person
It's a situation in the Situation Room right now.
Yes. Wolves are notoriously territorial, so please be careful.
I've heard, but he's a really friendly one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm part of the Wolf Pack
Doesn't
now.
mark his territory. Now, do you remember the first time you met Wolf?
I do. I was a little kid, and I met him in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember my parents saying, you're about to meet Wolf Blitzer. This is a really big deal. And I just was like, his name was Wolf? And then they introduced me to him, and he had this big white beard, and I literally was like, is he like part wolf or something? You know, like as a little kid, your imagination runs wild. He was this mythical creature to me. And then I watched him on CNN, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that one day. That looks like the coolest job ever.
At 9?
Well, yeah. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, a reporter, really, at that age. I wanted to first be a detective. And then I realized I don't want to see dead bodies and all that, you know.
Sure.
And then I thought I want to be an archaeologist, you know, dig in there and see what fossils we could find.
Sure.
But then I thought, you know what? I grew up in a family of journalists, and that seems like a path I should follow. But I think the through line is I just wanted to have a job where I'm digging, you know?
Your mom was the great Phyllis George, and your father was the governor of Kentucky, John Y. Brown. And so you must have had a very interesting childhood, and I can back that up with the fact because a lot of people would stop by. This is you as a kid with Muhammad Ali. How did you, what was that like for you? Did you know what an honor it was to meet this man at that age?
Well, for me, I was like, I knew my parents said, this is a really big deal. You're meeting Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're a kid, you don't really fully grasp it.
Right.
To me, he was just like this magician. Like he came in and he did this thing where he would float. He would look like he was floating 2 inches off the ground. And then he would teach me these really cool card tricks. I was like, oh my God, I met a real life magician. Of course, I did not grasp the superhero that he was when I was a little kid. And I know, by the way, that is not normal. And I'm so grateful and appreciative. But when you're a kid, when you're exposed to, you don't have the perspective. You take the experiences as they come. And I remember when I realized what a big deal he was at the Kentucky Derby one year. And he was holding my hand because he was so great and kind to me, and he sort of prioritized me over all these other celebs spending time with me. And he held my hand through the crowd, and the whole crowd got up in the stands, and they were yelling, Ali, Ali, Ali. And it didn't matter what background or race, ethnicity, none of that mattered. He just galvanized the crowd to stand and applaud him. And I thought, this is the most incredible moment of my entire life, to be holding his hand in this moment. And he's left a legacy that is unmatched.
You were senior White House correspondent for CNN and for the first Trump administration. Yesterday, the White House announced plans to handpick the correspondents, the reporters who can be in the White House pool. How do you see that? Because this has been the purview of the Correspondents Association. And now,
for decades.
And Donald Trump said, we're going to be calling the shots, quote unquote. What does that mean to you in terms of a free press?
So it's a break from precedent, right? And it could be very concerning. It is another example, in my view, of the White House trying to take control of the coverage and controlling who gets to ask the president questions. That said, I don't think we know what the impact will be, and it's something to watch for. Just for you all, because this is sort of inside baseball, but the pool, because that's a weird word, right? The pool means, like today with a cabinet meeting, they had representatives from different types of media, like print, wire, broadcast, because it's such a small room, who then have the footage and they take notes and they put it out to the world. So what the White House is saying, instead of the Correspondents Association, which is a group of journalists elected by their peers who work for the American people, not the White House choosing to make sure there's fair and equal access, the White House is saying, we want to choose which representatives are in there. So of course, it's something I'm looking at closely. If they just are choosing pro-Trump outlets, that could be concerning. But I think it's just too premature to know what the effect is going to be. Today was the first example of it. They chose who was in there, and he still got some tough questions. He got friendly questions, but he got tough questions.
But it's also an act of punishment, too. It's a tool of punishment. Just look at the Associated Press for doing something so innocuous as telling the truth that it's called the Gulf of Mexico. And they're being kicked out of certain access to the president in the White House, the Oval Office, and an Air Force One. So it ends up being a cudgel at the same time.
It could be seen as trying to send a chilling effect. But I will say I think the AP situation is different because that is a clear-cut case of punishing a news outlet for content reporting they didn't like. And that is contrary to the First Amendment, which protects press freedom so that we can hold those in power accountable. That is the role of a free press. Thank you. And thank you for your appreciation of that.
Sure.
That is the role of a free press in upholding democracy. And the president can't just punish news outlets for content reporting that he doesn't like, which is what is happening in this case. Something so obvious as to
call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. Yes. Just curious, what is the directive over at CNN? Is it the Gulf of Mexico or is it the Gulf of America?
Oh, God, here we go. Well,
yes.
Fortunately, I have not confronted that yet, Stephen.
Okay. So you're just not going to report on anything wet for the next 4 years? So
when there's a hurricane in the Gulf, we'll,
just the Gulf. It'll just be the Gulf from now on. Who knows whose Gulf it is? It's just, but I'm seriously asking, like, has CNN had that discussion? Anybody brought it up?
Look, I'm sure that those discussions have been had. I mean, I haven't had I haven't been confronted with that. As far as I know, there's no hurricane brewing in the Gulf.
Sure.
So, we'll have to wait and see, Stephen.
Yes, we will.
Stay tuned, as they say.
Pamela, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer and Pamela Brown airs every weekday at 10 a.m. starting Monday. It's Pamela Brown, everybody. We'll be right back.